Her voice was as sweet as in the early days. "How wonderful. My child, I've been waiting for this. See, the medicine I gave you worked right away. Now you just need to rest, take care of the baby, and leave everything else to me." From then on, she began calling me with endearing words, reminding me about everything from eating and walking to what I should avoid. She even promised firmly, "When you give birth, I'll come stay with you, take care of both you and the baby properly." Fong is a man. What does he know about caring for a woman in labor? Hearing that, my heart softened again. I told myself, perhaps she had just been too eager for a grandchild before, and that was why she lost her temper. But deep down she was still a good person. Once more, I chose to believe her promises. But as the saying goes, it's easier to change rivers and mountains than to change one's nature. That sweetness only lasted a few months. Just when I entered the most exhausting stage of pregnancy, Tuet, her daughter, announced she was pregnant with her second child. From then on, all of her attention shifted entirely to her daughter. She busied herself cooking all kinds of nourishing dishes for Tuet, while I received only a few casual phone calls. Occasionally, she did bring me some soup or a stewed chicken, but each time she never forgot to stress, "Tuet has severe morning sickness. She can hardly eat anything. I worry so much. You're just a daughter-in-law, stronger and healthier, so you can manage on your own. I only have one daughter. If I don't love her, who should I love?" Hearing that, I could only give a bitter smile. Her daughter was treasured like gold, while her daughter-in-law carrying a child for her family meant nothing. I didn't say a word, just quietly thanked her and took care of myself. Luckily, I still had my own mother by my side. Every day she came over to cook and look after me, never once boasting, only relieved as long as I was well. When the day came, I had to undergo an emergency C-section. As soon as I was wheeled out of recovery, the first person I saw was my mother, her eyes red from worry and sleepless nights. My father and husband were also there, but my mother-in-law was nowhere to be seen. When I asked Fong, he stammered. "Mom called to say she's busy at Tuet's house and couldn't come." Later, I found out that the busy matter he mentioned was nothing more than Tuet's child having a runny nose, and Elle was too worried about her granddaughter catching a cold to come to the hospital. During my entire hospital stay, she made just one phone call. "I heard both mother and baby are fine, so I'm relieved. Tuet's little one has been fussy lately, so I can't go anywhere. With your own mother around to help, what more could you need?" And with that, she hung up, without asking further about my health or her newborn grandson. All those promises, "Just give birth and I'll take care of everything," vanished like the wind. The heavy burden of caring for me in the hospital and during confinement fell entirely on my mother's frail shoulders. She cooked, cleaned, and stayed up at night cradling the baby. Watching her grow thinner by the day, my heart ached. I loved her deeply, and at the same time, I felt utterly disappointed with my husband's family. Their promises turned out to be nothing but empty words. After a month of postpartum confinement at my mother's house, I carried baby Pin back to my own home, worried about her daughter and grandchild. My mother also moved in with us to lend a hand. I thought life would be calmer if not for the constant presence of Mrs. L. Whenever her daughter was sick or her grandson needed her, only then would she be free enough to visit her biological grandchild. But instead of bringing joy, her presence always created tension. She didn't come as a loving grandmother, but more like a supervisor scrutinizing everything. The moment she stepped in, she would snatch baby Pin up, look him over from head to toe, then start criticizing. "Why does he look so skinny? Must be because your breast milk isn't nutritious enough. You should give him formula, otherwise he'll end up stunted." She said this firmly, despite my explanations that the doctor had confirmed the baby was developing normally. Hearing that, my mother stepped out of the kitchen, set down a plate of fruit, and gently replied, "Thank goodness, the baby is very healthy. Doctors all advise exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. It's best for digestion and immunity. Breast milk is still the best." Seeing that my mother made sense, Mrs. L looked a bit embarrassed but stubbornly added, "I'm only worried for the child. In our days we raised kids with whatever we had. It wasn't as abundant as it is now." Then she glanced around the house and scoffed. "What a mess this place is. You're at home all day, yet don't keep it tidy." This time, I couldn't hold back and answered, "With a newborn, this is already the best I can manage, Mother." The moment I put the baby down, he cries again. "There's no time to clean everything." My mother softly added, "That's right. Infants need their mother constantly. Housework can wait. The important thing is the health of both mother and child." If you come to visit, it would help to lend a hand instead of criticizing. Otherwise, it's really unfair." Her words, both direct and tactful, left Mrs. L speechless. Her face turned red, then pale, and in the end she found an excuse to leave, but she didn't give up. On later visits, she kept nitpicking, this time not targeting me directly, but sparring with my mother instead. She criticized me for not wrapping the baby in cloth diapers, to which my mother replied, "Nowadays everyone uses disposable diapers, they're cleaner and prevent rashes. Cloth diapers aren't really suitable anymore." She said I dressed the baby too lightly, and my mother countered, "Babies' body temperatures are higher than adults. If you overdress them, they sweat, and the dampness can cause pneumonia. Comfort is what matters." Every battle between her old-fashioned experience and my mother's scientific knowledge ended with my mother prevailing. The more she lost face, the more resentful she became. And then she turned to bad-mouthing me to Fong. Every evening after work, she would call him to complain. "I come to see my grandchild, but your wife and her mother just push me aside. Whatever I say gets contradicted. I have no voice in this house anymore." And as usual, Fong always took her side. He never cared about right or wrong, never listened to my explanations. The moment he stepped into the room, he frowned. "Can't you and your mom just go easy on her? She's old, so what if she says something wrong? Why make things so tense?" I looked at my husband, only feeling tired and disheartened. Not once had he asked if caring for the baby was hard, nor did he notice how much my mother helped. In his eyes, his mother was always right. While all the burden of patience and endurance automatically fell on me and my mom, Mrs. Lay's constant provocations, together with my husband's weakness, are slowly eroding both my love and my patience. On Baby Pin's 1-month celebration day, my husband and I organized a cozy meal, inviting relatives from both sides of the family to join the occasion. I say my husband and I, but in reality, all the preparations were handled by me and my mother. Fong only took on the task of delivering invitations, while the rest of the time he just gave orders, saying things like, "This dish should be cooked that way, to taste good, the feast needs that dish to look more proper." Listening to him, you'd think he was a master chef, though he has never once cooked a complete meal himself. My mother, out of love for me and her grandchild, was up early in the morning to shop for the freshest ingredients. Then came home, and tirelessly prepared dish after dish. My health was still weak, so I could only help with small chores. Watching her hunched figure working so hard made my heart sink. These tasks should have been the responsibility of Pin's paternal grandmother, the one who always claims to love her grandchild. Yet, Mrs. L only showed up when the meal was nearly done. She appeared in a shiny brocade all day, carefully made up, looking as if she were attending some grand banquet. Upon arriving, she didn't stop by the kitchen or ask a single question about preparations. Instead, she went straight to Baby Pin, picked him up, and proudly showed him off to everyone in the living room. "Look at my grandson, he's the spitting image of his father." She beamed with pride, as if the fact that the baby resembled his paternal side was her personal achievement. The party took place in a lively, bustling atmosphere. Relatives on my side praised Pin for being adorable and healthy, while relatives on my husband's side mostly focused on complimenting Mrs. L, saying how fortunate she was to have such a chubby first grandson. Throughout the meal, she attentively picked food for Fong and her nephews, yet didn't spare me, the baby's own mother, Evan, a glance. In her eyes, it seemed my only role was to have given birth to her grandson, nothing more worthy of attention. After the party, the men gathered in the living room for tea and business talk, while the women cleaned up the dishes. My mother and a few aunts were busy in the kitchen when Mrs. L leisurely walked in. She didn't lift a finger to help, just stood outside and said, "Leave it, let the daughter-in-law clean up. It's a wife's duty to take care of these things." Then she turned to her sisters and cousins, clapped her hands, and suggested, "Come on, it's been ages since we've all gathered like this. Let's play a few rounds of cards for fun." Her words were met with instant excitement. The problem was, 7 children, the oldest only 10, the youngest just 5, began running wildly all over the house, turning the whole place into chaos. Mrs. L rolled her eyes over the children before settling her gaze on me, a flicker of scheming malice flashing within. She smiled, her voice sweet but laced with imposition. "My, you're the eldest daughter-in-law and you've just had a baby? So surely you're the most skillful with children. Why don't you watch the kids for a while so their parents can go inside and play cards? Adults need some time to relax too." Just bear with it a little, consider it your introduction to the family. The room fell silent, and suddenly, all eyes were on me. I immediately understood her intent. She wanted to make me the unwilling babysitter. A way to display her authority as mother-in-law before the relatives. If I refused, I'd be seen as lazy and disrespectful. If I agreed, I'd be stuck alone, with 7 rowdy children while my own baby was still so tiny. I glanced at my husband, hoping he would speak up, but instead of defending me, he sided with her. That's right, it's just for a little while, nothing to fuss about. My heart sank. My mother stood nearby, silent, her eyes filled with both sorrow and resolve, as if telling me, you don't have to endure this anymore. I took a deep breath, forcing my tone to stay calm. All right, if mother trusts me, then I'll do it. I'll watch the children so everyone can enjoy their game. My quick acceptance caught the room by surprise. Mrs. Les' lips curved into a smug smile, her triumph clear. I quietly strapped baby Pin into the carrier against my chest and stepped into the living room. Clapping my hands, I called out to the kids, "Hey everyone, Auntie Mai has a game that's way more fun than tag. Want to play?" The children rushed over excitedly. I smiled and pointed toward my husband. "See Uncle Fong over there. He just came up with a very special game. Come on, let's all go to Uncle Fong, he'll play with you." In no time, the whole bunch had swarmed around Fong. Before he realized what was happening, he was already being tugged at, pulled into the chaos. Raising my voice so the whole room could hear, I added, "Fong, I can't manage alone. Pin still needs my attention. You're his father and their uncle too, so stay and play with the kids. I'll go help Mom in the kitchen and be right back." Without giving him a chance to protest, I turned to my own mother. "Mom, I'm feeling a bit tired. How about we go back to Grandma's house to rest? Fong and everyone else can take care of things here." She nodded at once. "Yes, you shouldn't push yourself after giving birth. Let's go home and rest." And so the two of us calmly left, leaving behind a scene of pure chaos. I didn't need to look back to picture Fong flustered among the swarm of children, while Mrs. L fumed with rage, as her plan to humiliate me had backfired, turning into a farce. On the ride back to my mother's house, for the first time in a long while, I felt truly at ease. My mother held my hand tightly, silent, but filled with warmth. After a long while, my mother finally spoke softly. "You did very well. In this life, we may endure, but never let anyone think we are weak and trample over us. Remember, you always have me by your side." I leaned my head on her shoulder, unable to hold back the tears. That night, as I had sensed, Fong called. He didn't ask if I was tired, nor why I acted the way I did. Instead, he yelled through the phone. He scolded me for being an inconsiderate daughter-in-law who dared to embarrass both him and his mother in front of the relatives. I listened, in silence, until he paused to catch his breath, then calmly replied, "The one who made things difficult for you and your mother wasn't me. It was you and your mother who pushed me into that situation. I only did what your mother asked, watching over the children, and I handed that responsibility back to the one most responsible, you. I did nothing wrong." Then I hung up, not giving him another chance. That night, I hugged Pin and had the first peaceful sleep since marrying into the Vu family. I knew a silent war had begun, but I no longer felt alone. After the baby's 1-month celebration, our little family sank into a cold atmosphere. My mother and I still stayed at her house. Fong didn't come, nor did he call to make peace. Perhaps he was waiting for me to give in first. But this time, I was determined not to yield. A few days later, maybe missing his son or simply lacking someone to cook, he finally came. Without an apology, he just said curtly, "Come home." I didn't argue either. Quietly, I packed up and returned with the child. On the whole trip, neither of us spoke a word. The atmosphere at home was so heavy that even my mother found an excuse to leave, letting us handle things ourselves. But nothing was resolved. We lived under the same roof like strangers. After being humiliated at the baby's celebration, Mrs. L.A. also stopped showing up. That silence lasted more than a week before being broken by a midnight call. My sister-in-law, Tuette, sobbed as she reported that my father-in-law had suddenly suffered a stroke back in the countryside. He was rushed to the hospital but didn't make it. The shocking news left both me and Fong speechless. All conflicts were temporarily set aside. He hurried to book tickets while I scrambled to prepare things for the whole family to return home that very night. At that time, Pin was sniffling with a slight fever. I worried that the long, crowded trip would make him sicker. Cautiously, I suggested, maybe you should go ahead. I'll stay with Pin. He's sick, and I'm afraid he won't handle the trip. Flustered, Fong snapped. What are you saying? My father has passed away, and you're not going. Do you want the relatives to gossip? Pin is the eldest grandson. He must be there to see his grandfather one last time. The whole family must go. No more discussion. Just then, his phone rang. It was Mrs. L.A., crying bitterly, yet issuing firm orders. You must bring your wife and child back, right away. Pin must attend his grandfather's funeral. If he doesn't, what kind of face will we have left? So my worries as a mother were completely brushed aside in the name of family honor and the duty of the eldest grandson. All I could do was hold my feverish child tightly, bracing myself for the exhausting journey. The funeral lasted 3 days. The sorrowful air, the sounds of drums and weeping overwhelmed me. In the midst of that chaos, I struggled to cope alone. With Pin, he was still so little, unsettled by the unfamiliar place, sick, and crying constantly. I spent most of the time holed up in the room, not daring to take him outside for fear of the wind and the crowds. In her white mourning attire, Mrs. L.A. cried over her husband, surrounded by relatives offering comfort. But whenever her eyes landed on me, they grew sharp and cold. Once, she came into the room, saw me soothing Pin, and reproached. What are you doing in here? Why haven't you brought him out to bow before his grandfather? He's family, how can he not pay his respects? His grandfather has passed, and he doesn't even come out to see him one last time. Exhausted, I explained, Mother Pin has a high fever. It's crowded and cold out there. I'm afraid he'll get worse. Although my baby had a fever, my mother-in-law snapped. Being sick is nothing. He's the eldest grandson. He must attend his grandfather's funeral. If you won't carry him out, then let me. She reached out, trying to snatch the baby from my arms. Terrified, I clutched him tightly, crying and pleading. Mother, please, have mercy on him. He's still so little, he doesn't understand anything. Don't make me take him outside right now. Luckily, a few cousins happened to pass by and managed to intervene. But my mother-in-law still threw me a hateful, burning look. During the days of the funeral, I was watched and gossiped about constantly. People said I was selfish, making a fuss over a minor illness. No one cared how sick my child really was, nor did anyone ask if I was struggling alone. Amid the family's shared grief, the worries and exhaustion of me and my baby seemed nothing but a burden. What I feared came true. After the funeral, my child's condition worsened. He wheezed, coughed, and struggled to breathe. The doctor diagnosed him with bronchitis and said he needed immediate treatment. When we returned to the city, the household atmosphere grew heavier. Fong was sullen and irritable. I juggled caring for a sick baby, housework, and his bursts of temper. My mother had to come over again to help. Before things could settle, my mother-in-law herself fell ill. After several days at the funeral in the countryside, her frail health and age took their toll. She came down with a bad flu, burning with fever and coughing non-stop. Logically, it should have been her daughter Tuette, who lived nearby, to take care of her. But Tuette was afraid her 2 sons might catch the illness. One afternoon, while I was busy feeding porridge and medicine to little Pin, the doorbell rang. I opened it and froze. Tuette was there, supporting Mrs. Ella, who looked exhausted. With a taxi waiting outside. Please help me, Tuette said hurriedly. Mother is really sick, but at my place the boys won't leave her alone. If they get infected, it'll be a disaster. Pin is older now, his immune system is stronger. Let Mom stay here for a few days. Okay, I'll bring porridge over. I was stunned. My baby was barely 2 months old, only just recovering from a serious illness. The doctor had warned us to keep him away from sick people. Yet she was using flimsy excuses to push her mother onto me. Before I could object, Tuette had already sat Mrs. L.A. down on the sofa and said quickly, I'm leaving Mom with you, please take care of her. I have to get back to the kids. And with that, she rushed out to the waiting car and disappeared. The room was left with only me and my mother-in-law coughing violently, her eyes both weary and quietly challenging. When Fong came home from work and saw his mother sitting on the chair looking exhausted, he rushed over to ask how she was. Hearing her complain, spicing up the story about being driven away by his sister, he immediately lost his temper. Yet, instead of blaming his sister, his eyes turned on me, as if silently assuming that this was my responsibility. Mother is sick and has just gone through a funeral. It's only right that she stays here. Take good care of her. Okay. I'll go out and buy some cold medicine and some nourishing food for her, he said casually, as though it were a given that I should look after my mother-in-law never once. Considering that our son had just recovered from an illness and was at high risk of catching something. I looked at my husband, then at Mrs. L coughing harshly on the sofa. A storm of emotions rose within me, my sister-in-law's selfishness, my husband's indifference, and my mother-in-law's presence right here in this house. If I refused, I'd be branded as an unfilial daughter-in-law, heartless at a time of family mourning. But if I silently shouldered the burden, my son's health would be put in danger. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of her coughing in the living room and my son's heavy breathing in our room echoed endlessly in my chest. Looking at my boy, still frail after his serious illness, I knew I couldn't gamble with his health just because of someone else's unreasonable demands and my husband's weakness. Motherhood made me more resolute than ever. Early the next morning, while Fong was still asleep, I quietly packed a few things for the two of us. I didn't say a word to him, knowing it would only lead to another quarrel. Carrying Pin into the living room, I found Mrs. L already awake, slumped on the sofa with a weary look. Seeing me with bags in hand and the child in my arms, she frowned and asked hoarsely, "Where are you planning to go?" "I'm taking him to my mother's for a few days. He's just recovered, still weak. I don't want him catching anything from you," I answered directly, without beating around the bush. Her face instantly darkened. "So you mean I'm bringing disease into this house and endangering him? Is that it?" I calmly replied. "That's not what I mean. I just want to protect my son's health." Then I opened the door and left, not giving her another chance to speak. I knew Fong would be furious when he woke up, but right now, nothing mattered more than my child's safety. When I arrived at my mother's, it felt as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. She embraced the two of us and sighed softly. "You did the right thing. Your child must always come first. Stay here with me, don't worry about anything else." Just as I expected. Less than an hour later, my phone rang. It was Mrs. L. I took a deep breath before answering. Instead of yelling, I heard her crying. "My, how could you treat me like this? Your father-in-law just passed, I'm sick and have no one to care for me. My daughter pushes me away, and now even my daughter-in-law abandons me. Do you want me to just die and be done with it?" In the past, I would have felt guilty, but not anymore. I replied calmly, "That's not what I mean. I only brought Pin here to avoid him getting sick. Fong is at home, he can take care of you." She went on lamenting her fate, saying her son was busy, no one was there to check on her, no one to help with her illness. Her voice grew more and more pitiful, as though she wanted to drown me in guilt. Hearing those words, an old memory suddenly flared up inside me. I remembered the day I had just gone through surgery, lying in the hospital exhausted, while she indifferently stayed home to take care of her daughter's child just because the kid had a runny nose. That contrast was the last straw I could no longer hold back. My voice turned cold. "Mother, I still remember very clearly the day I gave birth to Pin. You said Sister Tuit's family was busy so you couldn't come, and you even said it was enough that my own mother was there. Back then I was in pain, too. I also needed someone by my side. Why did you never think of me?" Mrs. L froze for a moment, then stammered a defense. That was different. You were young, and you had your own mother. I had just lost my husband. I'm old and weak." I cut her off firmly. "There's no difference, Mother. That day you told me the law doesn't require a mother-in-law to take care of her daughter-in-law during confinement. I remember that clearly. Then surely the law doesn't require a daughter-in-law to abandon her own sick child to take care of her mother-in-law with a cold, right?" The line went dead silent. I could hear her heavy, angry breathing. Without waiting any longer, I ended the call. "Please excuse me, I'll hang up now. Take care of your health." My hand trembled as I put down the phone, not out of fear, but from a mix of pain and release. I knew the last thread binding me to what was called my husband's family had snapped completely after that call. The days that followed passed in a rare calm. At my mother's house, I could devote myself entirely to caring for little Pin. Thanks to Grandma's skillful care, my child recovered quickly. His skin rosy, playful, and always smiling. Seeing him happy lightened my heart somewhat. Fong dropped by a few times. He wasn't harsh anymore, but his attitude remained resentful. He never apologized, nor did he ask about his mother's actions. He just played with the baby a little, then complained. "Mom is really worn out at home. She keeps coughing, she's picky with food. I work all day, then still have to cook and clean my heads, strung tight like a bowstring. Meanwhile, you stay at your mom's like you're on vacation. I stayed silent, just listening until it passed. Then the fateful day arrived. It was the weekend, and Fong came again. He left his phone on the table and went to shower. At that moment, the screen lit up with a message from the contact saved as mom. Has she come back yet? Just let her mother handle it, that way we get the benefit. I froze. Normally, I had never touched my husband's phone, believing that trust and respect were essential in a marriage. But this time, an odd compulsion made my hand tremble as I picked it up. The password was still his birth date. I opened the messages. What appeared before me wasn't just a single line, but an entire history of conversations. The more I scrolled, the harder my heart pounded, and my face grew paler. They weren't ordinary words of concern. It was a carefully laid out plan, step by step, aimed directly at me and my family. The mastermind was my mother-in-law, and my husband, the man I once trusted, was her obedient accomplice. There was even a message from Mrs. L right after. I gave birth, just let her side take care of the baby. That way we don't have to work hard, we save money, and we get credit for letting the grandma bond with her grandchild. If she loves her child and grandchild, she'll take care of everything anyway. Why compete for the work? Fong replied, yes, I understand, mother. Reading that, my heart felt like it was being crushed. All of my mother's sacrifices, all her hard work in their eyes, it was nothing but foolishness to be exploited. I scrolled further, and an even more horrifying scheme gradually unfolded. For the past few days, try complaining to your wife. Say that this house is too cramped, and when little Pin grows up, he won't have space to run around. Then, when the time is right, sweet-talk your in-laws. Tell them that if they truly love their children and grandchildren, they should give you some money to buy a bigger place. They only have one daughter. If they don't give it to her, who else would they give it to? We're just suggesting. If it works, great. If not, nothing lost. My husband, Fong, replied calmly, yes, I'll think about it. So it turned out. They didn't just want to exploit my labor, they also had their eyes on my parents' money and property. Tears streamed down my face. But that wasn't the worst of it. The most horrifying part was in another message from Mrs. L, which read, that house of theirs will eventually belong to my anyway. Your job is to be clever, make her parents trust and love you more than their own daughter. Just be dutiful, sweet, and caring. Then when they grow old, they'll transfer the deed to your wife, and it'll all be ours. I thought this through. Listen to me, you won't lose anything. I read it again and again, each word stabbing my heart like needles. And what shattered me completely was Fong's reply. Don't worry, Mom. Those 2 words marked the end of our 3-year marriage. They proved he wasn't just blindly obedient to his mother, he was her accomplice. Together, they plotted to strip my family of everything. All the trust, love, and hope I had in him crumbled. I once thought he was just overly filial, but no, it was cruelty. I once thought my mother-in-law was merely strict, but no, she was a schemer in disguise. At that very moment, the bathroom door opened. Fong came out, and seeing my pale face, asked, what's wrong? You look like you've lost a fortune. I didn't answer. I just looked at him with eyes full of hatred, contempt, and disappointment. Following my gaze to the phone still lit up on the table, Fong's face flashed with panic before twisting into anger. He rushed forward to snatch it, but I held on tightly. What are you doing? Who gave you the right to snoop through my phone? He growled. I didn't bother arguing. I simply unlocked the screen, thrust the message about the plan to take my parents' house in front of him, and said coldly, my voice steady, explain. He glanced at it, then stammered, You misunderstood. Mom was just joking. You actually believe that I let out a bitter laugh. Joking. A carefully crafted plan using my mother's efforts, squeezing us for money to buy a house, and even targeting my ancestral home, and you call that a joke? Do you really think I'm that stupid? Cornered with no way out, Fong could no longer deny it. He quickly changed his tone, pulling out his usual trick, shifting the blame and using emotions as a shield. Don't you see that everything started with you? If you hadn't gone back to your parents' house, if you had been a little more understanding, then Mom wouldn't have had to worry so much. Then he lowered his voice, feigning sorrow. You have to understand my mother. She just lost her husband, her mind is in turmoil, saying extreme things is unavoidable. When the elderly lose their support, they panic, they say unreasonable things. As a daughter-in-law, can't you be more forgiving instead of holding on to every single word she says? I stayed silent, listening to every word, but inside I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold emptiness. At that moment, I finally understood. Fong would never admit his mother was wrong. He would always hide behind the so-called duty of filial piety to cover for her, even secretly supporting her. Any argument was pointless. I couldn't convince someone who had been complicit from the very beginning. If there had ever been any trace of love left, it had died completely after those words of defense. I set the phone down calmly. All right, I understand now. Hearing that, Fong let out a sigh of relief, thinking he had won. He moved closer, trying to hug me, but I stepped back, my eyes icy cold. Go home. My son and I need peace. He froze, staring at me for a long moment, then silently picked up his phone and left. When the door closed, I collapsed onto the floor. There were no more tears left to cry. Only one thought echoed in my mind. This marriage must end. I needed to free myself and my son from this toxic spiral. The next day, I decided to return to our shared home but not to reconcile. I went back to start a new life, to prove that I was no longer a submissive wife. First, I told my mother, "Mom, please go home and rest. I know you've worked so hard for the two of us. From now on, I can manage on my own." She looked at me with deep concern, realizing that something serious had happened, but she respected my decision. She only reminded me, "If anything happens, you must call me right away. Our home will always be your safe place." After she left, the house felt empty and cold. Life quickly turned upside down. I no longer forced myself to be the perfect wife. My strength was reserved only for little Pin. Each morning, I fed him, played with him. By noon, I only cooked a small pot of porridge for the two of us. In the afternoon, I bathed the baby and lulled him to sleep. I no longer touched the housework, nor did I wash Fong's clothes or prepare dinner for him. The first day he came home from work and saw the messy house, the cold kitchen. His face immediately darkened. "All day at home and you let the place look like a pigsty. Where's my dinner?" At that moment, I was breastfeeding Pin and calmly replied, "I've been busy with the baby. If you think it's dirty, then clean it. If you're hungry, cook for yourself. Your hands aren't just for display." Face flushed red with anger. He jabbed his finger at me, his voice choking with rage. How dare you talk to me like that?" I didn't argue back, just held my child tighter. My silence enraged him more than a shouting match ever could. Finally, he slammed his briefcase onto the chair and stormed out to eat elsewhere. In the days that followed, things only got worse. Unable to control me, Fong began venting his anger on the innocent child. Whenever the baby cried, he would immediately bark, crying all day long. "Shut up already, you're so damn noisy." Each time, I clutched my son tightly, glaring at him with hatred. I didn't need to speak, he knew full well he had crossed the line. When he realized he couldn't bend me, Fong turned to his only source of support, his mother. Every day, he called her to complain. "Mom, I'm suffering here. I come home exhausted from work, and the house is a mess. There's no food. My wife treats me like I don't even exist. She's still angry with you, I think." Immediately, Mrs. L stepped in. She didn't scold me outright this time, but switched to a sweet, deceitful tone. She called me every day, her words seemingly caring but each one stabbing like a needle. I heard from Fong that you've been having a hard time lately. You know, couples argue sometimes, but as a woman you should be gentler, more yielding. Then the family will be peaceful. Men already face enough pressure at work at home. We must take care of them. Are you still upset that I texted Fong? I'm old now, absent-minded, and I had just lost my husband, so my thoughts were scattered. Don't hold it against me, forgive me, okay? Treat your husband better, child. Every phone call felt like torture. Her hypocrisy made me sick to my stomach. I never argued, only found excuses to hang up quickly. But my silence didn't make them stop. One pressed me with direct force, the other played mind games together. They were driving me into a corner. Finally, the last drop made the glass overflow. I realized I could no longer live in this hell. I couldn't let my son grow up in such toxicity, with an irresponsible father and a scheming grandmother. The thought of divorce, once vague, now solidified into a clear decision. I had to leave, not just for myself, but for my child's future. As Ted approached, the atmosphere at home was as suffocating as the damp northern winter air. Fong and I barely exchanged a civil word. He no longer scolded the baby, but instead resorted to cold silence and hateful glares. as if I were his mortal enemy. Right before Tet, as tradition dictated, Fong ordered, "Pack up. Tomorrow, we're going back to my hometown for the ancestral rites." While changing the baby's diaper, I didn't even look up. "The baby and I aren't going." "You can go alone." Fong snapped. "What did you say?" "If you don't come, the relatives will say I can't control my own wife." Coldly, I replied, "I'm not something for you to control. I don't care what your relatives think." Then I carried my son into another room and slammed the door shut. Outside, I heard his curses and the loud bang of the door as he stormed out. I thought the storm had passed, that if I just stayed strong, I would eventually break free from this mess, but I was wrong. 2 days later, while I was rocking the baby to sleep, my phone buzzed violently. It was my sister Tuite. A bad feeling rose in me. As soon as I picked up, I heard her sobbing. "My Mom. Mom fell down." My heart tightened. "What happened to Mom?" Through tears, she said, "She went to visit Dad's grave on the hillside. It's been raining for days. The path was slippery, and she slipped and rolled all the way down the slope. They just rushed her to the district hospital. The doctor said her leg is completely shattered." Though I hated Mrs. L to the core, hearing the news stunned me for a moment. But that feeling was quickly replaced by a deep unease. I knew this fall wouldn't just change her life. It was about to strike a devastating blow to mine as well. Mrs. L was rushed to the central hospital. The surgery lasted many hours, and the final outcome was like a lifelong sentence. She suffered a spinal cord injury, lost all mobility in the lower half of her body, and would be bound to a wheelchair forever. During her hospital stay, Fong bore the brunt of the caregiving. Tuite only stopped by briefly during the day, while the nights and most of the work fell on him. In just a few weeks, Fong grew gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes and a haggard face. Sometimes he called me, not to ask about me and the baby, but only to complain about his exhaustion, about his own ailments, about his mother's constant cries of pain, and about Tuite being preoccupied with her own husband and children. I listened without comment. I no longer felt pity, nor did I feel satisfaction, only a cold emptiness inside. I knew it was only a matter of time before, once Mrs. L was discharged, they would try to shift that burden onto me. And sure enough, that's what happened. A month later, Mrs. L was sent home. That day, Tuite drove her straight to my house without so much as asking. The wheelchair was rolled into the living room. She sat silently, no longer wailing like before, only her piercing eyes drilling straight into me. That evening, after I put Baby Pin to sleep, Fong and Tuite called me into the living room. They sat solemnly on the sofa, as if about to deliver a sentence. Fong spoke first. You can see for yourself. Mother can no longer walk. From now on, she'll need someone by her side at all times." Tuite immediately chimed in, her voice calculated. "I still have to take care of my 2 kids, and there's a ton of work in my husband's household. As for Fong, he's a man, he has to go out and earn money. To put it simply, neither of us can be with Mother all day." They exchanged glances, then both turned toward me. I stayed silent, bracing for the worst that I had already anticipated. Finally, Fong hesitated, then said it outright, "My sister and I have discussed it. Why don't you quit your job and stay home to take care of Mother full-time?" I was stunned, even though I had prepared myself. They said it so casually, as if offering me an opportunity. Seeing my lack of response, Tuite quickly added, "Of course, we won't let you suffer a loss. Think of it as us hiring you. Each month we'll pool together and give you 7 million. You'll have money, and you'll get to stay home with your child. Isn't that ideal?"